All right, we are here to talk about business casual shoes and the most common mix-ups people make with them. My name is Nick from Stridewise.com. I'm here with Afan in Chennai, South India. And Afan runs Bridlen, excellent shoe manufacturer that really emphasizes this business casual classic menswear space. Stridewise.com is a channel and a website where we look at casual, durable stuff that lasts for ages. Most of what I talk about is boots. And lately, I've experienced an itching to get into more business casual footwear. I got really into tweed, and that of course led to like buying a bunch of Oxford cloth button downs and then chinos, and now I've got to get the right footwear to go with that. In this video, we're going to break down Oxfords, Derbies, bluchers, wingtips, Longwings.
That's correct.
We're gonna figure out what the difference is between all of them.
Yep.
Now, help me out. In the whole shoe taxonomy, we got Oxfords, Derbies, bluchers, wingtips, Longwings. The first division you make is Oxford or not.
Correct.
What is an Oxford?
I'll start off to explain the Derby because it's easier. It's where the lacing system or the wings are above the main part of the shoe, what's called the vamp. So the vamp comes first, and then the wings of the shoe, the quarters, close over it. This allows for your shoe to kind of expand a bit more or less. So for people who have higher insteps, a Derby works better. Also makes it a bit more casual because the alternative, which is the Oxford, is where you have these two wings just below the main part of the shoe. So you see here, you've got the Oxford where the two wings come just below the wingtip. So the wingtip or the vamp here is sewn above. Okay, so while with the Derby, the lacing panel, this lacing area here, it just closes on top of the shoe, seems pretty simple. Correct.
With an Oxford, actually, the rest of the shoe is kind of on top of the lace. Like the lacing panel's on the bottom, and then you see it gets stitched on top of it.
That's it.
And also, the way that the laces are open is a bit different, right? Because with this, they come together like, I don't know, like a hair clip, like that. Whereas these, on an Oxford, it opens out like a V. So you must have less control over the fit than you do with a Derby, right?
Yes, you need a much closer fit on this. So for people with mid to lower instep, Oxfords tend to fit them better unless it's a very good last that would fit them on an Oxford as well. But otherwise, you have lesser chances of a very good fit for people with a higher instep. But it also makes for a much more formal shoe.
And it's more formal, yeah. I get why the first division is Oxford or not, because I do feel like that lacing system really does like set the tone.
Yeah, it's just a lot more sleeker and therefore more formal.
So a shoe is either an Oxford or a Derby.
That's correct.
What about a blucher?
A blucher is a term that gets thrown around quite loosely. People in America talk about it differently than Europe, but here's my take on it, and I'm quite sure this is what it is.
He's positive this is what it is. He's speaking
very positive.
Authoritatively. Yes.
I am. That's because the blucher is where you've got the eyelet piece that's separately sewn on to the rest of the upper. Here you've got a hole, almost like a hole cut. We've got it going all the way around till here, and then the eyelet pieces are separately sewn. This is what makes a blucher, despite it being a Derby. All bluchers are Derbies, but not all Derbies are bluchers. This is a Derby on its own. This is also a Derby, but it's a blucher.
Okay, that makes sense. Is one of those more dressy than the other?
I wouldn't think so. I'd say both are casual, depending on the material that you use. On a Derby, for example, you could make it of boxscarf leather, and it looks more formal.
These have eyelets. These have blind eyelets. You can see the metal on the eyelets here. These are blind. That means the metal is on the other side of it. Blind eyelets are more dressy, right?
Blind eyelets are more dressy.
Okay, all right.
In this case, I've kept it that way, but I have another style where I have a Derby with blind eyelets as well. In this particular case, you could say this looks a little bit more formal. Yeah,
it's interesting because they're both very informal leathers on this, but the fact that this has blind eyelets and the fact that it's a blucher, which is perhaps more minimalist, like maybe fewer seams, maybe a little bit more reminiscent of like a hole cut shoe, you know, like there's no seams along here. That normally evokes like slightly more dressiness.
It's cleaner in some way.
Right, cleaner, that's a good word for it. Okay, so we've done Oxfords and Derbies. And then we've got Derbies and bluchers. And bluchers are still Derbies. Not all Derbies are bluchers.
Got it.
What's a wingtip shoe?
Right. A wingtip is, we've got two wingtips here. In this case, this is an Oxford wingtip. It's where these wings sort of fall off more or less to the middle part of the shoe, both on the inside and the outside.
It's like a long toe cap.
Yeah,
that goes down
wings,
the side.
That's it. Yeah, sort of the wings of the toes.
Got it.
The toe cap goes and falls sort of to the middle part of the shoe. Here you've got an Oxford wingtip, and here we've got a Derby wingtip, where the lacing system simply comes on top.
Yep.
This will lead on to your next question, which I think would be how this is different from a long wing.
Yeah, yes.
And what happens in the long wing is instead of the wings kind of falling off here, it goes all the way behind the shoe. So that's a longer wing, so long wing. And this was what makes it a long wing.
Now, I would think the long wing, because there are fewer seams and fewer pieces going along, and also this is like a bit reminiscent of Balmoral a little bit, the way it's going along like that. I would feel like a long wing is more dressy than a wingtip. Is that fair?
A slight bit, just because there are fewer panels, perhaps.
Right.
And in this case, because it's made of box scarf, it does look a lot more formal than, let's say, this pair that's made of suede. So that makes it, ever so slightly more formal.
I'm learning a lot in this video, but one thing, and you told me this before we started filming, that I did not believe. I thought all wingtip shoes, all long wing shoes, I thought that largely meant the key defining feature of a wingtip is broguing, which is what all these holes are all over the place.
Right.
Now, I know that broguing it's like leftover from old English country shoes, right? From a time when someone figured out that when you have holes in upper like this, it helps it to more effectively drain water because you were walking around English countrysides shooting pheasants and that kind of stuff, right? Like that's why.
It's also because, if you had a lot of scratches onto the leather, just because you've had all that broguing taking out bits of leather onto it, it doesn't show as much. It also allows for you to cut through not the best parts of leather.
Right. While it's considered kind of dressy, it actually doesn't get to the point of formal. No. Broguing is actually, this used to be the sign of like a very outdoorsy shoe, a country shoe, right?
A country shoe is the right word.
Right. That's what broguing was for. Nowadays, a little like some loafers, you can dress it up, but I don't know, with a suit and tie, I'm still not sure about broguing.
With a suit and tie, you just ignore the broguing, and what I'd call an austerity or an austere wingtip is where you have the wingtips, you have many components going around, but we don't have the broguing anymore.
Right, okay, yeah, so this is what I was getting at before and I got sidetracked. A wingtip and a long wing don't necessarily have holes all over them.
They don't need to have, no. That's
they
just
almost always do though.
Long wings almost always do. Wingtips not necessarily, and the case in point here being we've got two Oxford wingtips, one with broguing and one without.
Okay, so this is a wingtip shoe, and it's just a wingtip shoe because this, I'll just call it a long toe cap. This toe cap comes all the way down like this, but then it swoops down and terminates like roughly mid-foot. So coming down and then coming down like that, that's what makes it a wingtip. It's not the broguing. It's not the holes.
It's not the broguing.
Okay, and you can also have long wings where this seam here would go all the way along.
You could effectively have
You
one.
could have that.
Absolutely. You could.
And it would still be called a long wing even if there was no broguing.
There's no broguing in it, yes.
Okay, so yeah, I guess that's most of my questions. All right, okay, so main things that I've learned here today, Oxford shoes, it's all simply about the lacing, whether it looks to be below or above
That's
the
correct.
upper.
Yes.
Derbies are just any shoe where the lacing comes together like that over the top of the shoe.
Correct.
A blucher is a type of derby because the laces are going up over the top, but it's sort of less complicated. It's just, you've just got this one little eyelet panel here as opposed to the eyelets being part of the quarters, this whole thing here. Then you got the wingtips, which do not necessarily need to be brogued. A wingtip simply means that this piece of leather here at the toe, if you want to pretend it's a toe cap, that's the word I keep using, that means it swoops down and then goes down to the sole and terminates like roughly mid-foot here. Whereas a long wing will keep that seam going all the way toward the back.
Correct.
And they usually got brogues on them, but not always. All right. Anything else you want to tell us?
No, that's. I think we've covered it all here.
There it is. That's the taxonomy of the business casual shoe. So in terms of like formality, there's a lot of stuff going on here, like that we haven't even touched on. For example, suede is more casual than leather. Full grain leather, smooth leather. Brown is more casual than one of these black leathers here. Generally speaking, Oxford lacing is more dressy, but of course when you put it on brown suede like this shoe and with all the less formal broguing, that dresses it down. So there's a lot of factors at play here, but generally the shoes we've mentioned thus far, they're pretty solid options for if you're like me and you're getting into business casual stuff, you like a bit of like maybe preppy style, or you just want to wear sports jackets more often. these are the kind of shoes that you should know about. Bridlen.com is my current favorite place for these sorts of shoes. They also do a lot of like dressy shoes as well on the area of stuff you will very much wear in business professional and more formal settings. But for business casual, they don't slouch either. Thanks for your time. Subscribe to this channel and go to Bridlen.com. There it is. There's that website. There it is. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks very much.